What is up, guys? It's the Sound Alchemist, and I'm here with...
Gershwan.
Or maybe it's Gershwan here with the Sound Alchemist.
Maybe.
And today we're back to answer your enticing questions on... I had to burp. For the greater...
This is a video series where we answer the questions left by you, the viewer. If you have a question for us, comment down below. Put question in front of your question because we get to those questions first. And that is what Fran AG did. He asks, Space Marine and Necron Alliance? Question mark, question mark, question mark. When? How? What? What happened? Who betrayed who? What book?
This was quite a while ago. I want to say maybe even 5th edition. Probably 6th. Maybe 7th. But before 8th. But anyway, what was going on was that the Blood Angels were going at it with the Necrons. And it was basically a stalemate with like the Necrons kind of holding back a little bit because you know how they do. But in the Codex it said that the Blood Angels were winning. So what ended up happening was that a hive fleet ended up appearing, and it was basically game over for the two of them, because it's like, if we're going to be fighting a two-sided war, they're going to lose. The Necrons are going to come out on top. So the overlord for the Necrons, and I don't think it was Dante, but it was another captain, agreed for a truce to take out to the Necron threat so that they both survive.
Yep.
And that's exactly what ended up happening. It was such an epic battle that the freaking Burning One, the Catan shard of the Burning One, was released, and there's like an epic image of a Space Marine fighting against a massive Tyranid with the Burning One like shooting fire right behind him. Yeah. And it was a very epic battle that ended in the Tyranids being destroyed, or at least that small tendril. And the Necrons betrayed him. After the battle, they still assaulted the Blood Angels, and the Blood Angels had to flee.
Yep.
Although it was a strategic retreat in the Codex for the Space Marines.
Yep.
But that is the epic battle that we were talking about. That's not the only time that the Necrons and the Blood Angels have met and have done truces. The Silent King, believe it or not, actually met with Dante himself and a few other like higher-ups. And it was such an epic confrontation because the Silent King showed up wearing the death mask of Sanguinius. Like, how much of a Chad move is that? To show up with a mask of your fallen Primarch to say, you know, I'm taunting you. You know you want to do it, but you're going to get effed up if you do.
Even though I think he was trying to do that to, like, honor Dante.
Oh, that is not what he thought. He was fuming because of that.
Yeah. Dante's pretty
Or
mad.
at least, well, no, Dante was kind of like, you know, calm, collected. It was the bodyguards of Dante that were like, yo, like, we gotta mess this dude up.
But then the interesting story about that is because it's the same situation where they both fought the Tyranids, they won, but the Silent King ends up saying like, oh, I mean, technically we didn't really need to team up with them. We just wanted to see what they were all about.
What their battle prowess was. And I think at this time, that's when the Silent King said, hey, there's a bigger threat out there. We shouldn't be, you know, having these pointless battles amongst ourselves. The real threat is still out in the galaxy.
Yeah, but then he goes and he creates the what is it called? The conduit thing?
Oh, yeah.
With
what is it, etheric conduit, I believe?
Yeah, something like that. But that's what that was with the Blood Angels. Like he was just testing them out, looking at their fighting style, and obviously experimenting on humans and finding out what's going to happen.
Well, Space Marines. Well, no, humans too.
Yeah,
humans too.
Yeah. And yeah.
Yeah. I can't wait till the Codex drops, because surprisingly enough, Space Marines and Necron Codices drop next month.
Yeah, Blood Angels.
Yeah. Blood Angels are going to be in this core Space Marine, as well as like Death Watch. Basically everything is in that book. And then later on, the Blood Angels and all the other separate factions of Space Marines will be getting their own supplement. So it's cool to see what the lore says in each book as to what transpired between these events. I can't wait to read the lore behind the Silent King to see, you know, what exactly is going on.
Yeah. Good question.
Yeah.
Next question. You got one?
Jeremy Johnson, JJ. How common are Space Marine recruits who didn't go through the gene seed process at a young age? Very rare.
Jinx.
Pinch poke, Yomi Coke.
Yes.
Yeah. The only really like notable instance of this was for the Dark Angels. Luther was for one. and his men, they all went through the process at pretty much adults, because they were already like Knights of Caliban, and they were renowned fighters and whatnot.
Yeah.
And they got the gene seed implantation, and not a lot of them survived, but those that did were still pretty formidable Marines. You freaking had Luther fighting against a lion. Like, just think about that. Like, imagine if he would have gotten the gene seed process done a lot earlier, he would have been probably above Primarch level, which is just crazy to think.
Well, at that point, he was possessed by chaos, though.
Well, yeah.
Because that's what happened also with Corferon and Erebus.
Mm-hmm.
They were already adults.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very rare now. What you're seeing now is like the Primaris crossing the Rubicon.
Mm-hmm.
It's very difficult for Space Marines to survive that once they're already Space Marines.
Yeah. Speaking of crossing the Rubicon, did you hear that in the new 9th edition Space Marine Codex, for the Crusade portion, you can have an honor B, have a regular firstborn Marine become Primaris.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
That is really cool. So if you're creating a narrative based on the Crusade, that can be pretty badass.
That's, yeah.
And also, Space Marines being Space Marines, if you have like a Space Marine who has fallen twice or has taken like battlefield scars, I think it's what they're called, twice, instead of just removing him from the game, you can just replace him with a freaking Dreadnought.
That's awesome.
That is really badass.
Yeah, that's cool.
I mean, it's like, yeah, of course it's a Space Marine thing to say, oh, you've lost twice. Give him a freaking Dreadnought.
Yeah.
It's like, these negatives have become a positive.
But would you have to get, like, because it has to be point values, right?
Yeah, so I think it's not going to be like as great as like a...
You have to get rid of the entire unit, but bring in a Dreadnought.
And it's really cool because if a Psyker happens, like if the Psyker gets this, the Dreadnought is a Psyker.
Oh, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty dope.
That is really cool. I can't wait to try that out.
This is all in the 9th edition core rulebook, or is that the new book?
It's in the new 9th edition Space Marine Codex.
Oh,
because they have Crusade-specific stuff that's going to be
in
coming out in each Codex.
Oh, okay. So it's like Age of Sigmar, when Age of Sigmar had like the special battle tomes and stuff.
Yep.
Okay.
So like the Necrons have their own thing, but I don't think it's as cool as the Space Marines.
What is it? Do you know?
I think you get like a Necron Lord, you like disassemble him, and he reassembles as like a different faction Lord or something like that.
That's cool.
Not as cool as the Space Marines.
Becoming a Dreadnought.
Mm-hmm.
Next question comes from Ty Shingleton. From lore perspective, do you prefer 30K or 40K? Why? What's your favorite aspect of both?
Oh, that's hard. 30K, definitely I prefer the models.
Yeah.
Like, I like the look of the helmets, the grittiness. But in terms of lore... Ooh.
I would say 40K for lore, and models... I mean, Primaris kind of kills it, so I think 40K for both. For me.
Yeah. Because when I think about the lore in 30K, it's literally just like the heresy.
Yeah.
Like it's a Space Marine versus Space Marines, which is cool. But when you bring it over to 40K, you have all these other factions.
You have the Tau.
Yeah. Because of this, I'll go 40K lore, 30K models.
Mm-hmm. And there's like more, it's more ambiguous with 40K, whereas 30K, you already know what happens. Like those battles are set in stone.
Yeah.
Because otherwise 40K wouldn't exist.
It's like Sanguinius is dead. But...
Yeah.
Varus Manus is beheaded. Oh, no, he's still beheaded.
Yeah. He has to be.
Yeah.
Next question.
This one's by Magic Eye. With each new edition, we get some new major lore. Right now, we have the Silent King. In 10th edition, aside from maybe a Primarch coming back, what do you think would be the major lore progressing the story? So I don't think it'll evolve anything with Necrons, because obviously that was already done. Obviously, it's going to have to do with the Space Marines and something else. What that something else is, I hope it has to do with the old ones coming back. I think that'll be a brand spanking new like shake up to the world. Because old ones are something that we really don't know too much about. We saw inklings of them in like the mythos of the Eldar, the Krorks, the Orcs, that kind of thing, and Blackstone Fortress.
Yep.
And I think 10th edition would be a good time to introduce a new race that's just completely different than everything else we know.
Yeah, that would be nice.
But it sucks because it's like, well, what about the storylines for everything else?
Yeah, because then you're gonna ignore the Orcs again. You're gonna ignore the Tau. And then I feel like it's gonna be like the Silent King, where like the old ones come, and then you have a paragraph, you have one story arc,
And that's it.
that's it. And so it's like maybe just save that for like when you desperately need it.
Mm-hmm.
I like the idea of like every edition having a new Primarch, and then not necessarily a good one or a bad one, but just a new Primarch coming back per edition. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I can't wait to have Corsaro Khan 20 years in the future.
Yeah. Next question comes from Lemon Eating No. Good day, boys.
Top of the morning to you.
Are you guys into Necromunda? Going to check out the new game? Looks pretty true to the tabletop version. Thanks for all the videos, and I love the outro song. Moo. We've never played Necromunda.
Yeah. To me, when I see like the Necromunda like box sets and stuff like that come out, it's like, oh, cool. Like,
they look really badass.
Yeah. Like the whole nitty grittiness of it, the whole Judge Dredd look of it is pretty cool. I saw like the first 10 minutes of the game, and I feel like it's not for me.
I haven't seen the actual gameplay.
It looks badass. Don't get like that. Looks like the graphics and everything looks cool, but it's like you can only move so far, and it's turn based, and it's weird. Like it feels like a mixture of like two types of games, and I feel like they didn't really know which one to go ahead and do. But I don't know. Maybe I just got to give it a shot.
I think that's a little scary because like kind of like Magic the Gathering, you could play Magic the Gathering online, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I wonder, the fear is that that's going to take away from the tabletop.
Yeah.
Because it's way easier to just play at home with a friend online than it is to actually go over to somebody's house and play on the tabletop, and you miss out on that whole aspect.
Yeah.
So the fact that Necromunda is being like basically being turned into a video game, that's scary. Hopefully that doesn't happen to 40K.
Wasn't there already like a virtual tabletop that you could play 40K on?
I mean, it was Checkers. Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not really the same.
Right.
Because it's really easy to just build a 40K game, like tabletop game, where you have your turns, you do what you got to do and stuff like that. And then if it's online, a new edition comes out, you just update. But then you lose out on that entire hobby.
Yeah, the whole building, painting, because you could do that all in the game. Like, oh, I want my orcs to be bad moons. Click, click, click. Yeah. Or 99-cent microtransaction, which, I mean, it's 40K.
Probably.
Yeah.
But that's another scary part, too, where some kid's going to be like, well, I can pay $1 and get this unit, or I can pay $50
and have to build it and
paint it and do all that. Yeah. So I don't know if that's a good way to get people into the table.
Because I could definitely see people only sticking to like the video game because it's a cheaper alternative. Like I don't have to actually go out there and find a person to play with.
That's true.
And I'm pretty sure there's going to be people that are like, no, you're taking away the core of 40K, actually playing physically with people and building and all that.
Yeah.
So I could definitely see a schism being there. But in terms of accessibility, hell yeah, 40K game would be really great.
Yeah. I do like the fact that they're creating, like if they came out with, because you know how Total War and then the old Warhammer Fantasy is kind of the same thing. Yeah. But obviously Total War is just way better because it's not turn-based. Like you're just actually out there fighting. If they did that for 40K, that'd be like we were talking about earlier or like last episode, Battlefront 40K would be super badass. And I think that would add people to the tabletop. But having the exact same thing online, I don't think that's good.
Yeah.
It's scary.
Your thoughts, we'd like to know.
Next question.
This one's by Guardian Forever. Did my long rambling follow-up cause the edit at 11:56? I just want to understand why the model scale matters so much.
Probably not. We always have to edit around 11 minutes just because that's when the camera turns off.
But yeah, so the thing you were talking about, scales and models, the thing why it's so important is because when you're playing 40K, line of sight is huge. And like if you're scaling a model that's supposed to be standing up upright and it's supposed to be like 3 inches tall and you have them like crouching, then it's like, well, it's kind of like cheating in a way because it's like that's not how the model should be posed, but at the same time, you should have the creative openness to model them however you want.
That's true. Like, but somebody could just cheat the game and say, no, my Space Marines are all squats. So like they could just bring in like a straight up like just what are they called, the dwarves from Age of Sigmar, and then just play that, and the base size is the same, but the height is different. So yeah, I never thought about like that part.
Yeah, because if you're converting things, and you might be making them a bigger target than they are, a smaller target, it's very wishy-washy. I know this happened a lot back in 7th edition with Tau tournaments, because Riptides were such a powerful unit that people were literally like having them prone, like, oh, I'm firing like in the prone position, or they're kneeling. It's a big model, so to have it kneel is like maybe 25% of it is shorter. So that's like a huge boost in terms of like hiding behind cover and line of sight. So it's a topic that's hotly debated.
Yeah, even though I do think that sometimes people get a little worked up for no reason. In the 40K and 40 minutes, there was a battle report with the Soul Drinkers, and the guy like kit bashed his own chapter master. Yeah, it's so badass. And obviously, like, that base size is different than what it's supposed to be and all that kind. And they played. Yeah. And it worked out.
I think the rule of cool is usually always going to win with like friends and stuff.
It should, yeah.
If you're playing against that guy that's like, no, you can't use that model, that's not legit.
Stop playing with him.
Yeah. It's like, dude, I'm just trying to freaking have an epic battle. Because he played him as Gilliman. That was the rules he was using.
Yeah, but the base was definitely not Gilliman's base.
Well, I mean, in that instance, I'd say it's okay. Because it's like, oh, it's such a badass model. But at the same time, you're playing at a disadvantage. Because it's a bigger model.
That's true.
Bigger footprint, bigger line of sight to it, harder to hide behind terrain. So you're giving your opponent an advantage for you wanting to play this awesome model.
Yeah. Well, yep. And then it always comes down to like, well, is it going to be a tournament player or is it just friendly? Yeah. Always play friendly. This question comes from Thomas Gladu. Would you guys ever be open to delving into more lore videos of Age of Sigmar? Great video, guys. Keep it up. We've tried to do it.
Yeah, there is a playlist for a few Age of Sigmar lores. I know there's the one on like the Sigmarines. What are they called? The Sylvaneth, some chaos stuff in there, the Night Haunts.
And then the thing about Age of Sigmar is that the lore didn't actually start getting good until like
recent.
Yeah, like a year or two ago.
It was very confusing and convoluted, which I think is why we didn't dive into Age of Sigmar back then. We now have our own armies. You've got like every army from Age of Sigmar. Yep. I play the Night Haunts. And I recently actually got a new model for the Night Haunts.
What you get?
I'm not going to say. You'll see it the next time we play.
We're never going to play. We're probably not going to play this year.
Yeah. Now that I think about it.
It's a fun game, though.
It is. It's very
really
fun.
Refreshing.
Yeah. It's close enough to 40K that like we're not trying to learn a whole new game, but still different enough to make it be like a nice, fresh breath air.
Rolling off. I think rolling off for like switching.
Oh, yeah, turns.
That's awesome.
That's really cool.
Yeah. Next question comes from Brandon Barnett. How does perpetuality work? Is it like healing factor with Wolverine, or is it a resurrection after death like Highlander?
It's more like Wolverine. We've seen this when Conrad Kurz took Vulcan, and he was torturing him, burning his arm off, chopping him up into little pieces, and Vulcan would always regenerate. And also, like, if you kill him, like, completely obliterate him, he does come back. But it's not like, oh, I'm a new person in a new body, or...
It's kind of like the Phoenix from Harry Potter, but instead of having, like, from the ashes an egg, it's from the ashes it just starts... Vulcan comes back.
Yeah. And I mean, they haven't really gone too in depth with perpetuals and like what makes them that and all this stuff. So that's another thing that I really want to see 40K delve into more.
Yeah, they have to be careful though, because it is one of those topics that's kind of game breaking.
Oh yeah.
Like time travel. I think they handle time travel way better than they do with perpetuals. Next question comes from Polished Pebble. Who is the Joe Rogan of the 40K universe?
Joe Rogan. He is in
He's
the 40.
There, yeah. Trace in the Infinite would probably be the closest thing, because it's like he likes talking to different people. He has a collection of different things. But yeah. I don't like his new podcast setup.
Oh, really?
The red.
It takes time to get used to.
Yeah.
But yeah, Trazing the Infinite was also in Fear Factor, believe it or not.
Was he?
Mm-hmm. Back when he had hair.
Yeah. Next question.
Cirrus. If a perpetual fully consumed by a Tyranid or Recruit, would the perpetual be able to recover? Will Tyranids or Recruit inherit the perpetual trait? So if Recruit or Tyranids ate a perpetual, what happens? That's very interesting.
I'm pretty sure, like, because he'll probably get thrown, if it's Vulcan, he'll probably get thrown into, like, that vat.
The goop.
Yeah, and then obviously it's kind of like burning, and we know what happened when Vulcan was burned. He just came back.
Mm-hmm.
So you just come back.
Yeah. Well, if a Recruit ate him, that's not possible because Recruit can't kill Vulcan.
No, they can't bite through his skin.
Mm-hmm.
I'm watching The Boys, and that one guy that can turn invisible, and his skin is supposed to be like bulletproof and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I feel like that's Vulcan. His skin is bulletproof.
What episode are you on, by the way?
Very like two or three.
2 or 3, yeah, okay.
I mean, spoiler alert. I know what happens to that guy.
Oh. Is he a perpetual?
He's not. And those are the questions for today. If you guys have more questions for us, comment down below. Thank you guys so much for sending those questions our way.
Yeah. Thanks again. This is the Sound Alchemist.
Gershwan.
And we are afuera!
Always used to put my freedom first in any situation.